Welcome to Simple But Not Easy, a mindfulness podcast. I'm your host, Paul Dager. In today's episode, we meet Marissa Alonzo-Ackerman. Melissa is a family-first human kindness advocate and a tenured communicator who, like many, is discovering her version of mindfulness. Her experience as a special needs mom to a son with nonverbal autism has helped strengthen her journey and fine-tune her ability to understand emotional and nonverbal communication and help enhance her ability as an empath. Gratitude, patience, and resilience are her three favorite responses to everyday life. Please enjoy this discussion with Marissa on her mindfulness journey. Marissa, thank you. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today and having a conversation about mindfulness. Where would you like to begin our conversation today?
Well, thank you, Paul, for having me on. I would love to hear, how you define mindfulness. And I kind of am curious because I wanted to see if it kind of lines up with what think maybe mindfulness is. Is that maybe a place we could start? 'Cause
Yeah, I'm just thinking, do I do the old therapist trick of, well, what do you think it is?
I could tell you what I think first, but
Yeah, take a run at it. Be
I mean,
brave, be bold.
yeah, I've always thought mindfulness was trying to find your inner peace, basically. Am I in the
Okay.
right?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. And because we all have very chaotic lives in some way or another. Mine is, at least. So it's that moment,
Yes.
or moment, or if you could have a really long moment to yourself. That's what I've always thought it was, but I'm not sure if that's the real definition or not.
Well, let's not worry about the real definition,
Yeah.
air quotes. When you say find that inner peace, what does that look and feel like for you?
Well, I take that definition mostly because I myself suffer sometimes with general anxiety. I've had in the past therapists tell me mindfulness is one way to go. And when I've talked through it, they were kind of go towards like meditation and inner peace, meaning like just a moment to calm your brain and not be thinking about everything all at once, which when you have anxiety or that you're
Or
tend to
children?
be like, exactly, you're tending to always be on the go, and so
Yeah.
that's what I always assumed it is. And but to me, I guess, like, I feel that I achieve that form of that is like through music. So for me, I
Oh,
like
cool.
listening to music. That's the time I actually feel like my brain is actually kind of like relaxing and I'm not so much all over the place.
So a relaxed brain, what it's not is all over the place. So
Yeah.
when you're listening to music, what does a relaxed brain look and feel like?
It's like when you're at a concert and it's just everything in the room feels so right. The
Mm,
music's great. The people around you are all on the same level. Their experience the same. I mean, I've been to concerts where people are crying because it's just like you're just
wow.
feeling like a very positive emotion. So I guess I've
Okay.
always thought maybe that's what they mean. Trying to achieve something
Okay.
positive, not get away from the negative because there's so much negative going on.
Okay. What I'm hearing is you're bringing up some really key points. And what I
Yeah.
enjoy is we're going to come up with the definition today
Okay.
based upon your experience rather than going what do the experts say.
Yeah.
Hearing that there's this quality of, and this is where a lot of times mindfulness gets a bad rap, that it's very
Yeah.
selfish and self-centered. And when you describe at a concert, there's this relational part of your experience involves other people, which is really cool.
I feel like maybe there's various ways to have that moment of, I guess, like what would be considered mindfulness. Like myself, I feel like that's when I have had those really positive feelings is whenever I'm in
Yeah.
a concert setting. But I've had moments like that where I'm alone and I'm journaling. I'm a big writer.
The thing that I really want to highlight that you're mentioning is some people get hung up in mindfulness equals meditation. I can't meditate, therefore I will not have mindfulness in my
Yeah.
life. And I want to dispel some myths here. And what I hear you describing is whether it's a concert, listening to music, or journaling, certain conditions
Mhm.
make mindfulness, that experience, more conducive, and that there's not one way to get there. There's this beautiful metaphor about the experience of mindfulness is like the sun and the clouds.
Mm.
this innate capacity. So it's not like something from the outside. Mindfulness is an innate human capacity. And when we feel that like we're out of touch with it, like you mentioned, brain being all
Yeah.
scattered or anxious and too much energy, and that's like the clouds, it doesn't mean that this capacity is gone. All of us have certain conditions we're drawn towards,
Mm.
which allow us to more easily access it. And that's what I'm hearing you making a list of.
But yeah, in the concert, I was just feeling so many emotions.
Yeah, that those conditions allow you to access this capacity.
Yeah.
And I really think that's an important message for listeners to hear. Sitting quietly on a cushion with your legs crossed is not the only
Mhm.
way to tap into this. It's not the
Yeah.
only way. This idea of like a collective mindfulness experience I hear you describing that I
Yeah.
think is really cool. I feel like awe and chills at the same time as you describe it, because I think about the state the world is in and like,
Yeah.
let's create more of these experiences for groups so that we can find this other side of being human that I think we really need right now.
I saw this video. It was again going off like the collective experience of mindfulness. They had gone in a football stadium, thousands of bands that came together to play Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit" all together. So it was like
Oh, wow.
all at once, like thousands of guitars, thousands of drums, thousands of people singing the song. And it kind
Cool.
of gave you chills to be there, probably was like an experience for them. It's like, I feel like those are the experiences you're putting out positive energy, which we do
Mhm.
need more of in the world we live in.
Yeah, and in finding that, one thing we talk about mindfulness is intention, setting the intention to experience something as opposed to a goal that's in the future and you have to get to it. Ed Podville talked about this idea of islands of clarity, and he was working with folks like extreme states like schizophrenia.
Oh, wow.
And even with folks with that severe of mental illness, what he found is they have these moments too. And part of his treatment approach was creating a space for them to connect with those clarity and think about the chaos of our lives and going 20 directions. And when we have these moments of feeling this calm connection,
Hmm.
peacefulness, that's always available to us, but our lives get so
Yeah.
distracted, we miss out on it.
I feel like there's so many different ways that we probably could tap into those moments, but we just live in a society that's very centered around, productivity, which is great. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love to be productive. What you need to do to make
Yeah.
money and everything like that. It would be nice to see more focus on mindfulness or even just mental health. And so that's something that I think about often actually, because you do see a lot of people in not very good states of mind, and it's like, if we had more moments that we're just kind of just we're all here just to hang out or we're all here just to have this like really nice moment between us, maybe we would have, I mean, I'm no doctor, but maybe we'd have less negative things happening in the world.
You're not a doctor, but you're a human being, which
Yeah,
to me is
exactly.
even more credibility
Yeah.
as far as this idea of expert mind versus beginner's mind. And you know what we need. Go ahead and put it out there in the world. What do we need more of, Marissa?
Yeah. What we're lacking is like the ability to be human to each other, to
Yeah.
like realize we're all only here for a glimmer of time. Everyone has their
Hmm.
own personal journey. How we treat each other here, it will forever be imprinted in your mind. Maybe it comes out in the way we have our anxieties or whatever it is. A lot of things you see nowadays is people are just so upset and frustrated, and that's valid.
Yeah.
We still got to realize we're all kind of going through things. What is it that they say? You don't know everyone's journey. Be kind because you don't know someone's personal life at the end of the day.
Yeah. What pain or suffering they're going through.
Exactly.
Full disclosure, like out driving and like there's someone who, the light turned green and they're just sitting there. And my wife is a really good reminder of take 3 breaths before you honk the horn.
Mm,
So it could be something small in their life. Like they just got an email from the boss,
mm.
that didn't say why we want to meet at 2, or it could be they just lost someone in their life. I got to say, my best mindfulness teacher is my wife. I want to give her a shout out
I
because
love that.
Yeah, she gives me these. She's the kindest person that I know, and also the most fierce when it comes to justice and fairness in life. She reminds me that, just because I'm this mindfulness teacher, I'm not 100%,
Yeah.
putting this into practice. And so I guess back to that relational part, we need reminders in life. Talking to folks like you is a really good reminder of, yeah, I can be kind and positive and peaceful in life. What if we all did that, like for the next 5 minutes? What would that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even just 5 minutes, right? Collectively, it's interesting because a long time ago, someone was telling me, did you know that our brain actually categorizes things? Like that is just like the nature of your brain. Said, is that why we specifically categorize ourselves as people, like race, religion, whatever it is? Is that
Huh, yeah,
why?
yeah.
And they're like, could be. You don't necessarily have to categorize everything. We're all human at the end of the day. To me, I'm like, is the categorization helping or hurting, or what does that look like? If we ignored it for a second, maybe that's when we would achieve like those 5 minutes of just like, okay, we're all one for a second.
Yeah, set it aside. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting with the brain science piece. This idea that our minds and brains have developed efficiencies
Yeah.
because we can't process everything. And I think when you talk about the categories, that is a brain processing efficiency
Yeah.
that may, as you said, make us more productive, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And getting stuck in that mode, like when you're at the concert, it's almost like those categories fade away.
Yeah. To me,
Yeah.
they do. I don't notice who's who in a room when I'm listening to a really good
Yeah.
concert. When I'm at a concert, I'm like, I'm just there to listen to music. I might be like, wow, look at that guy. He's like really into it. Because at that concert I was mentioning, there was this one guy, I mean, he was into it. He was dancing. I just noticed it because he was like obviously doing something different than everyone else was doing in a positive way. Like, I'm in
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
positive mindset, so I'm not looking for anything negative in the moment, anything distracting of the moment.
Right. And I'm hearing that when there is a difference noted, there's a celebrating of that difference as
Yes.
opposed to a reacting to it.
My husband is actually a white guy, and there was a Mexican band. In general, he was actually one of the only ones that were white amongst us all. And at the beginning of the concert, I was just teasing him a little bit, but then everything fades away. You don't know
Yeah.
who's who in a room, how many male versus female are in a room, who's this race. You're just there because you're like, we all like this band. We
Hmm.
all wanted to listen to this band today. And that's, I think,
Yeah.
is the important piece at the end of the
I think you just added to our evolving definition of
day.
mindfulness, where these categories begin to fade away
Yeah.
and there's more direct contact with the other people and the experience, not a filter of categories in between.
Like, as we're talking, I'm like, I guess that it would be how I would define it.
You get
You're
credit for this definition.
yeah, I mean, I think maybe hopefully that would resonate to a lot of people, and maybe they feel the same way, whether it's music for them or they're at a book club or something, and they're like, okay, we all like the same book. I don't care who you are. We are
Yeah.
all here to read a book together and discuss it. I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think that's why it is actually important to have time in groups and by yourself, because there's a lot of people in the world, so you have to be
Yeah.
able to know how to be among them, but also have your moments to yourself as
We've got to learn how to be
well.
among them. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Mark Leonard is a mindfulness advocate who is all about social mindfulness. He's constantly kind of railing against mindfulness being overly focused as an individual pursuit. It's like you're kind of missing the boat. And that's what I'm hearing you describe. So you have a lot more wisdom here than you think you do on mindfulness.
Well,
That
thanks.
we
I had no
can't
idea.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If we miss out on the social relational aspect, we're dropping the ball on the real potential of accessing this capacity.
I mean, I feel that way. At least, like you said, that's my definition of mindfulness. And it does evolve. I have children, so don't get me wrong. I still like, I
Got
guess,
to get along with those little people too.
yeah, like I'd still like sometimes having my moment to myself. I go to the other room, I watch my shows that I like. I'll have my glass of wine. I'll have a few
Yeah,
hours to myself with
yeah.
nobody around, nobody texting me, calling me. I'm like, this is my moment.
And I think there is something too, again, I want to use this podcast to expand people's understanding and how personal practice can look different ways. And I think you're speaking to someone who's more extroverted may need more of those group activities versus more introverted may need more of that separation time for refilling themselves. Again, another key point I think you're bringing up is what are some considerations? What is going to be my path to accessing mindfulness may look different than yours.
Yeah, I agree. Paul, I'm curious. I would love to know your definition of mindfulness.
Oh, sure.
Like
Uh,
and what you learned, because maybe it speaks to me, and maybe I can even incorporate it in my practices for myself.
yeah. Ask 20 different mindfulness teachers the definition of mindfulness. You'll get 20 different variations
Mm,
on that answer. A lot of times you'll see definitions paying attention, and that's it. It stops. Like, well, you can be really hypercritical of yourself and others while you're paying
yeah.
because you're paying attention and picking apart everything about them and you. So it's not just paying attention. It's, as I like to quote John Kabat-Zinn, it's paying attention in a particular or special way. As we notice things either inside or around us, how do we greet those observations? And there's the qualities. I've seen from 5 to 9 different qualities listed. I tend to go with a core 5 as a starting point. Classically, it's non-judging, non-striving. And how do you not do something? I had a wonderful other teacher I worked with many years ago who changed it to suspending judgment and striving.
Mm,
And then I hear people say, well, not judging is great, but I can't stop that.
yeah.
And my
Yeah,
first
like that's
response
hard to
is,
do.
yeah. I mean, because I think there is a certain evolutionary advantage to judging and striving. It's never that those are bad things. It's when we get stuck in those modes
Mm,
that we detach from the moment and ourselves and other beings. The first way to stop judging is to notice when you're doing it.
that makes sense. I can
You,
see
you
that.
yeah, because you can't notice something and do it at the same time.
That makes sense because that is maybe something I already do myself too, which is great.
Sweet.
I'm all great, yay! I'm like
Look
on
at
the same
you.
page as it because I was actually going to ask you too. How do you practice mindfulness around people that might not be mindful? Like how that seems difficult. I will say I have people in my lives that are a little judgy all the time, and I tell them I'm like, oh, you should, like this isn't helping. This is actually making you feel like negative right now. Why would you even like
Yeah.
how do you keep up your mindfulness around that kind of energy for yourself? Like I'm just so curious what you've learned. So maybe I could try to challenge myself to do better.
Again, luckily my wife isn't in the room to rat me out because I'm not 100% on this. If we continue to walk through the 5 core qualities, acceptance or allowing
Mm,
comes to mind. You talk about being around someone who is irritating, annoying, just downright pain in the butt. Having a moment of allowing my reaction to that and not having to act from that. This moment of feeling it fully,
yeah.
of my reaction, which is like, come on, knock it off, or maybe full blown like irritation and anger,
Yeah.
fully allowing my being okay with my reaction to them allows me to not have to act from that place. Now, it's funny because I've been teaching this stuff 20 years and I noticed that my metaphors are getting outdated. So I like to talk about driving stick. And I realize not only do people have automatics, they have electric cars. Do you drive stick or have you driven?
One time only.
I love driving stick, and that third pedal, the clutch,
Yeah.
disengages the engine from the wheels. I use that metaphor of the engine could be revving,
Mm,
way up into the red and the car sits still. And to me, that's what acceptance and allowing is
ah,
like. I can disengage that emotional reaction from behavior, and then we can call upon another mindfulness quality of curiosity, like what happens if I don't do what I always do?
yeah.
So that the old definition of insanity of doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. I
Yeah.
find that if I allow and accept my reaction and don't act from it, then I get curious what other options are there for me and what other options are there for the other person. Because a lot of times the other person is expecting a certain reaction. And it's almost
Uh-huh.
like we have our 2 scripts and we're ready to read and if I put my script down, not only do I have more options, and sometimes I find that people get kind of caught off guard because they're ready to kind of defend their position.
Oh yes.
If you don't play that game, then like, oh, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And what do we do now to me is a wonderful spot to be in because now we've got choices.
Yeah, you're like, now we don't have to go down the road we've always go down
Right,
when we have these
right,
arguments or
exactly.
whatever it is. Now that makes sense, and I feel like that's something I'm gonna think about. Well, from the sounds of it, sounds like I am pretty mindful.
Yes, you are.
I didn't know. I'm gonna try to keep staying in that way. My life is so chaotic, so are so many people's. I
Yeah.
understand that. I have a son with special needs, so it is crucial in this family for
Yeah,
us
yeah.
to stay in the right mind. And every now and then you'll get those dips and where you're just like everything is awful, everything sucks. Like, everything's
Mhm.
going the worst way possible. But then when you turn to the things that help you get back into that mindset is what has helped me, especially in this. It's been a difficult season of life over here for the last
Yeah.
several months, and
Oh, right there with you.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I know a lot of us are different. What is it? Different boats, but same.
Same waves?
Yeah, like we're all just kind of like, what's happening next? I'm trying to stay positive, and I think.
Mhm.
Well, I think it was like Betty White. She lived such a long life, and she had said, and my mom tells me this often too, to be honest, not just Betty White. My mom says, life, it's not supposed to be all great, actually. Sorry to burst your bubble, but
Yeah,
it's not going to
yeah.
be good all the time. And
Right.
there'll be horrible experience. I mean, death, everything. I mean, all that is just normal life experiences, and it's the way you
Mhm.
deal with them at the end of the day that's gonna be how you are.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
deal with things negatively, you make it worse. I
Mhm.
try to keep that mind in my mind often.
We have a special needs son as well. Noah's on the
Mhm.
autism spectrum. You
Yeah.
bring to mind mindfulness quality of patience. I sometimes do the guy thing and tried to be headstrong and like if he was in a certain space but something has to get
Yeah.
done, force it to get done. And through the school of multiple failures
Yeah.
that I've learned that there's times where I just got to be patient and let him ride through what he's going through.
Yeah.
That I think patience is another key aspect here of I may not like my experience, I may not
Mhm.
like what's going down. As long as everyone's safe, then I've got to be. It reminds me when we lost containment and we went from a crib to a daybed.
Yes,
Every
I know the
parent out there is
journey well.
shaking their head. Yeah. The route that we took was sitting outside an open door.
Mm,
So there was some space, but there also was, I'm here for you.
yes.
And I would be out sitting between the two rooms and my head just kind of dropping. And I kept thinking, I know I can wait you out, little man.
Yeah.
And that's
You're like,
the
that's what's kept me going.
I'm clinging to that right now. And I
Yeah.
think that maybe, for folks who maybe don't have a formal mindfulness practice, but if you're a parent, patience. Because there's
Yes.
times where we just have to wait the kiddo out. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Speaking to the choir. And
yeah,
you're right. I mean, a tremendous amount of patience and trying to understand things. My son's nonverbal. That is also like trying to understand. That's why energy is so,
interpret.
yeah, like energy is so important to me, understanding energy. My son may not speak verbally, but I can tell you, okay, he's getting sick. I can tell because he's doing this, this, this. I might not know
Yeah,
exactly what the sickness is, but I can tell he's getting sick. Or I can tell you he's very, very tired or he's very hungry, and
yeah.
it's because you have to kind of understand it by interpreting nonverbal behaviors and communication and picking up on that energy that they are putting out. I guess that helps
Well,
with the mindfulness practices at the end of the day.
Well, I was going to totally go there. If you have a child who speaks in other ways,
Yeah.
you are accessing mindfulness and practicing setting aside judgment and striving, practicing acceptance, curiosity, and patience to be able to understand how is he speaking to me right now without
Yeah.
words. There's no other way. So I
Yeah.
want to say you may be a mindfulness master and not even know it.
Well, that's exciting because sometimes, as just humans and parents, and sometimes you
Yeah.
feel like you're the master of none in the moment. I'm like,
Yes.
I'm the master of nothing right now. Everything's
Yeah.
going. It's nice and it's validating sometimes to hear it, even from strangers or whoever. You're just like, they see it, like they see
Yeah.
me, and
Yeah.
I didn't see me in that way for so long. So thank you for that, Paul.
Well, and coming back to the categorizing thing that,
Yeah,
yeah, to be able to be receptive to communication done another way,
yeah,
that you really do have to drop categories because words
yeah,
are categories. And so now it's opening to eyes or gestures or movements
yeah.
to be able to piece those together into understanding what's he need you've got to be dropping down categories that tend to get in the way of interpreting that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We can see his frustration. We could feel the frustration he's having.
Right,
And so
right.
now he's, using a device and it's a lot better and he's starting to get the hang of it. But yeah, I mean, it's also picking up on a lot of moments, intuition, I guess,
Hmm.
parents. It's not a straight line at all when it comes to
No.
that.
Yeah, yeah. We really have covered, I think, many different ways of, I was going to say defining mindfulness, but I want to say actually of more importantly, experiencing it,
Yeah.
from concerts to understanding our children. And if that's the takeaway we share today, that it's not just sitting quietly in the corner and waiting for the gong to go off, that there's many ways. And I think ultimately when I teach mindfulness, I talk about sort of three different ways. There's a continuum of awareness is one understanding. There's tools and techniques, and then there's living from this place.
Mm.
And that's what I want to honor, that I hear that you live from this place. Like you didn't even know you're doing it. And yeah, and that is, as humans, this is our birthright, being able to access and show up in this way. Again, if we can get the world to do this for 5 minutes. So from
Yes.
people listening to you today, if they can recognize I do this for 5 minutes, then that's a good day.
Yes. Well, thank you, Paul. I mean, thank you for allowing me to talk with you today. I mean, this has been such a great conversation.
Oh
Really
yeah,
have
yeah.
opened up my eyes to, like you said, I had no idea. I'm like, okay, I am mindful. That's something I could like go around and say today. Hey, guess what?
Own that.
I know. I'm mindful, guy.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Marissa, yeah, it's just been a pleasure hanging out and chatting with you. And I can't wait for people to hear this and learn from it, learn from your life and your experience about how they are a mindfulness master and didn't even know it. Simple But Not Easy, a mindfulness podcast, is produced by me, Paul Dager, and thank you for putting up with my lack of technical skills. A huge thank you to my guests today for sharing their story and insights. And a thank you to Jacob Morrison, Juliana Castro, and Trevin Stiegel, my friends and mentors in how to make a podcast. I miss you guys. And Indira Romack, who gave me my first podcast hosting experience at Psychum. And of course, thank you to my listeners for joining me on this journey along the path of waking up and being mindful together. If you find value in this podcast, please like, write a review, and share with your family and friends. Be well all until we meet again in our next episode.